Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this webinar. I think this is the time we should start. This is our 18th webinar, and we have been quite happy all along with your cooperation and support. And I hope all of you are also contributing to our One USD charity drive for each webinar. And now I will invite Professor Dr. Rukhsana to start her presentation. Thank you very much, everybody.
Assalamu alaikum and very good morning, very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you to all the respected participants for joining this webinar. This webinar is about the best answer questions, the 3 F's of the best answer question, the format, the features, and the flaws. On the title page, I've put the picture of 4 exotic birds of Pakistan. If we ask a question about these birds, say A, B, C, and D, and say the following birds are colorful, and it's a true-false question, the answer will be all the 4s are colorful. So A, B, C, D, all are true. While if we ask the question, the bird with yellow feathers and a long beak, which one is that? The answer will be the B, and this will be the single correct answer type of a question. But if we ask the question, which of the following birds is most colorful, then there is a competition between A, B, and probably the C as well, because C has also some multiple colors. So this is how the question, they are distinguished between the true, false, the single correct answer and the single best answer. We are going to dwell on it in the coming slides. The learning outcome of these sessions would be that after attending these sessions, the participants would be able to identify the learning outcomes that can be appropriately assessed by using MCQ. That is very important because all the learning outcomes cannot be assessed by one method only. So there are some learning outcomes which can be assessed by the MCQs, while the others need other methods of assessment. To construct valid and reliable BAQs, keeping in view their basic characteristics and general rules. To construct BAQs by using the classic format. This format was introduced by Helen Dina in 2001. So we are following all that. To rectify the common flaws in writing stems, lead-ins, and options to improve the standards of the BAQ. Before we start, just some introduction on the assessment. Is a process of documenting in measurable terms the knowledge, skills, and attitudes of an individual. The BAQ assess only the knowledge component of it. The skills and attitudes is assessed by other methods. These knowledge and skills should be related to the stated educational goal. It is very important that the questions which are produced are related to the educational goals of the faculty or the university. This assessment is performed by using a sample taken from a larger domain of content and process competencies that allows the examiner to infer that the students have understanding of the particular area of the domain which is explored. We cannot ask questions from each and every lecture, for example, in one examination, but if you spread out those questions in different examinations, you will be able to assess all the learning outcomes of the lectures in different examinations. What makes one assessment better than the other critically depends upon the purpose of the assessment, which in turn depends upon the broader educational aims. We are all familiar with the Miller's pyramid of the clinical competence. It has 4 stages. The first one is knows, second is knows how, then shows how, and then does. The shows how and the does are the skill part of the knowledge. So practically we are concerned more with the knows and knows hows. If the question is on knows, this is just a mere recall of the knowledge, and any selected or the constructed response of type of a test can assess that. But to know how in which the student's ability is tested to manipulate and apply the knowledge, and to demonstrate some understanding of the relationship between concepts and principles, for that BAQs or EMQs are the better options. Learning, teaching, and assessment must not be viewed as isolated concept. The value of changing assessment is to reflect what need to be learned is evidence in student learn what they know they will be tested on. So if the questions which are produced are of recall of knowledge, the student know that that is what they need to pass the examination, so they will learn accordingly. But if the questions which are produced demand thinking skills, analytical skills, application skills, so in that case, the students will definitely go and learn for the deeper learning. So this type of atmosphere should be created right from the beginning for the students, that how they are supposed to learn right from the year one when they start the course. Because once they have developed the habit of learning only by doing the factual learning, that they won't be able to go to the deeper learning component of it. Knowing what you want the student to know or to be able to do by choosing the most appropriate, valid, and reliable method, which is also cost effective, it is very important. You have to select the most appropriate, the valid and reliable, and cost effective as well. Sometimes you have options of having number of assessment methods to be used, but the university is not willing to pay that much amount for that. For example, the question in which you are asking for the simulated patients is very costly. So in many of the OSCEs, this type of facilities cannot be used. The reliability can be determined by the test-retest, split half, equivalent parallel form, inter-examiner or inter-observer methodologies. We are not going to touch on how these questions are analyzed in these sessions, but there are a number of methods in which you can deduct all that. Whenever you go for the assessment, you should ask yourself a question: what should be assessed? The main important thing is that you should follow the outcomes of the course. And out of the course are written in, has three main criteria: the task which is to be performed, the condition under which that task can be exhibited, and the level of acceptable performance. If the learning outcomes of the course are written very well, then there will be no problem for the students to know what they will be assessed upon, and there will be no problem for the question developers to know that at which level they have to develop the questions. The domain to be assessed will be the knowledge for the BAQs, and the importance of the topic is reflected by the time which is spent to teach that topic. Why should it be assessed? There are a number of reasons for which the assessment is done: to assess the achievement of outcomes at a specific level of the course, to provide feedback to the students on their strengths and weaknesses, to motivate further reading, especially for the formative assessment, to assess the effectiveness of teaching and curriculum, and to fill the instructional gap by encouraging the students to study broadly on their own. We are all familiar with the term of dove and hawk type of examiners. This is what we call as the assessment by ambush. So the dove type of examiners are those which ask very simple questions, mainly on the recall of knowledge type of factual type of questions, while the hawk examiners are those which go into the very minute little things which is a small letter written in the books. That component they want to assess, because they want to discriminate very clearly between the high and the low achievers. Both of the extremes are not good. The question should be somewhere at the level of the level 3, 4, and 5 of the Bloom's taxonomy to be a good BAQ. Too easy or too difficult examination questions fail in the validity of the test, and as well as in the discrimination of the students. How should it be assessed? It should reflect the student's abilities. It should be fair and free of examiner biases and idiosyncrasies. It should not be dependent on language intricacies, especially because English is not the mother tongue of many of us. So the language which is used in the question should be simple English. There are different methods for various outcomes, and the methods which are normally used are the written assessment and the practical assessment and the oral assessment, while there are a number of methods used for the are appropriate to the level of the students. The level of difficulty should be appropriate for the type of assessment, and the assessment methods used are appropriate, valid, and reliable. There are a number of assessment tools which are used: the essay type question, multiple choice question, problem-based question, modified essay question. The list goes on and on. But normally in one assessment, if the assessment is of the summative type and it is at the end of the year, when the students are being promoted from one phase to another phase, or it's the exit examination, there should be a battery of different assessment tools which should be used. How many of them are used? Usually it has been documented that in a medical school, the students are exposed to 8 to 14 different types of assessment tools overall in their 5-year course. But in one examination, you should have at least 6 or 7 different types of assessment tools which you use to assess the students for the overall assessment of the students. When should the assessment should be done? We know that there is a formative assessment, which is an ongoing process. For that, usually the objective type of questions are used, because marking of the papers for the number of students is too hectic for the staff. And the beauty of the formative assessment is that you provide the feedback to the students immediately. The summative assessment is done at the end of the course or end of the phase, depends. And it shows that the achievement of the learning outcome has been achieved, and it's important that all the stakeholders are aware of that. Okay, sorry. The classification of the multiple choice item is that multiple choice item is a form of assessment in which the respondents are asked to select one or more choice from the list. There are multiple true-false formats, which is a number of different types. I'm not going to go into the detail of it. Some of them has already been considered redundant, but some of them are still used by the different universities. While the single answer format requires the examinee to indicate only single correct or best response. So 2 words are used, correct and best. The type G, the single correct answer, is called as SCA, or it is also called as 1 of 5 type of questions. While the best answer question, BAQs, are also called as the single best answer question, SPAs, one best answer question, OPA, or best of 5, BO5. Okay, so these are the terminologies which appear in different articles in different from different institutes, and practically they are adopted just like that. So practically, if you think of it, the best answer question and the single best answer question, the best is always best. So why this word single is added over there? But these terms are now commonly used, and these are everybody understand what does that mean. The BAQs have gone through a number of changes over the years. The traditional BAQ was used for testing content standards worth being familiar with or are important to know and do. And they are comprised of a stem with 4 to 5 choices. Then came the enhanced type, in which we are still using the content over there, but the stem is supported by graph, chart, table, or diagrams with 4 to 5 choices over there. Then came the justified form. In the justified form, whatever the student has selected as the best answer, they have to give the reason for that why they have selected this as the best answer. So that was called as the justified type of the BAQs. And now we are using, some universities are using what is called as the case clusters, in which the stem is followed by 2 to 4 lead-ins with 3 to 5 options each. So this is the evolution of the BAQ over the years. Whenever we do the assessment, we do the blueprinting. It's very, very important that you have the wide coverage of the curriculum to make your assessment reliable. For example, I'm showing over you the blueprints come in different shapes and sizes. So this is one which we used to use in one of the faculties over here. This is say for one paper which comprised of CVS and the respiratory system module. Both the modules were 5 weeks in duration, and the disciplines which were included in that and the number of lectures or the different sessions which they conducted were identified, and then the number of questions were calculated according to their input for that module. So if you look at this, there are questions for end of module and for the preclinical professional examination, and the type of questions used are MCQs, SPAs, SEQs, EMQs, and NVQs. So there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of knowledge-based questions were used, and then there were OSPEs. This is for the preclinical year 1 and year 2. After the table of the blueprint has been developed, this is passed to the subject experts, the head of the departments, and the head of the departments then distribute those questions into different lectures they have delivered. So if you look at it and have a glance of it, you will see that almost all the lectures have been assessed at one level or the other. Either it is the end of the module or the preclinical professional examination. Another thing was that for the preclinical professional examination, 2 sets were submitted to the examination division. And it was at the discretion of the examination division that they will select which set. So practically that means the standard of question will be same for both the sets, because one set will be used for the actual examination and the second set will be used for the supplementary examination. That means the level of the supplementary examination is equal to that of the main examination. The questions which are produced by the different disciplines undergo a very, very hectic process, a tedious process, a emotional process of question vetting. The vetting takes place at 3 different levels. First vetting takes place at the level of the discipline, in which the head of the department will be the chair over there, and all the department members are the member of that committee. At the second tier, the faculty vetting committee comes into play, and it is chaired by the medical education unit head or the coordinator, whosoever is that. And the members are all concerned head of the departments. They will bring their vetted question to this meeting to deliberate. The idea of having this committee is that when the questions are seen from the perspective of other disciplines, the question which as a subject expert we think they are the perfect question, but when the other people look at them, they will find some discrepancies, some flaws, or something lacking in those questions. So those questions can be modified further to make it better understandable for the students. The third level vetting takes place at the dean's level, and at the dean's level, the questions are mainly checked for if they are of a good standard, of a good level, and there is no ethical or social issues which are associated with those questions. So they will roughly look around those aspects of the paper. The best answer question format, the anatomy of the BAQ. The objective questions are generally called as the items. They are not called as the questions because technically speaking, there were not too many questions which are asked in that one. The STEM is an introductory statement, usually within the clinical context. It has a WGNI with the diagrams, lab reports, radiograph pictures, which presents the problem of the patient. Then there is a lead-in question, the question which indicates the relationship between the STEM and the options. It is the point of focus for the student, so it should be constructed in such a way that student exactly knows what he or she is supposed to do. What is the most likely diagnosis, for example? What is the most appropriate investigation? What is the most common complication? What is the most specific investigation? So these type of words are used over here so that it indicates that this is the best answer question. The alternatives, also called as the option, choices, or foils, are 3 to 5 replies, which are statements with variable degree of truth. The key is the comparatively best or absolutely correct response. It is a comparatively best or absolutely correct. Statement amongst the options provided. Destructors are the relatively less appropriate choices than the key ones. The faculty can decide that they don't want to have the comparatively best. They would like the absolutely correct type of a question of the response, the options in the question. If they decided, then that means that it will pass the cover test. Otherwise, the question may or may not pass the cover test. For example, this is one question of anatomy. This is for the preclinical years. You see that there is a history given over there, which is not written as a history. It's just a paragraph of statements. And from these statements, the students are going to go back towards the basics and find out the reason for that. So it's not a clinical question in a way that it is not going towards the diagnosis or the treatment or the investigation and all that part. This question is going back towards the finding the reason of all those of the presentation of the case. Which one of the following is the most likely site of lesion? We are asking. We are not asking to go for any diagnosis or anything like that. And then that is the lead-in, and then you have the four A, B, C, D are the 4 options. In those options, one is the key and the others are the destructors. The destructors are all relevant. All can be true over there to a different degree of level, but the best response over there is the one which is the key. If you see that there is one ONE, one has been added in the lead-in. This normally is not over there, but when we introduced the BAQs and the people were confused whether in BAQ we can have 2 best answers or 3 best answers. So practically this was introduced to make the people comfortable that there should be one of the following which is the most likely site. So they have to select one. So once they get familiar with the word one, so that one was removed after a year or so. This was for helping the staff members who have just started writing the BAQs. If we take the anatomy of the clinical question will be more clinical. It will go from the presenting complaints, will go on towards the examination or towards the diagnosis. So it depends at which level you stop, and your lead-in will be the next step from there. For example, over there, they have given the investigations, so now the findings, the examination. So now you want to have the choice of investigations to confirm the diagnosis in this patient. So the questions will be, this will be the stem, followed by lead-in, followed by key and destructors. All the destructors are relevant, but which one is the first choice of investigation is given over there. So what is the thing which you will do first in this case? That is what is being asked. If you diagram these options on a single scale, you will see that the level of correctness increases from 0 to 100%. The D option, for example, is the most correct. It is not 100% correct, but it is the most correct question will be the key, and the other will be the destructors. So in type A, in order to rank order the relative correctness of the options, they must differ in single dimension. So all the questions should be of the same type. Either they will be the investigations, or they will be the diagnosis, or they will be the site of lesions, whatever. So they all are homogeneous in their character. While in type G, all options differ on single dimension also. However, only one is correct while the others are plausible but false. For example, I ask a question, the capital of Pakistan is Islamabad, Karachi, Lahore, Rawalpindi. The true answer will be Islamabad. But the people who are not familiar with it will think of Rawalpindi, Islamabad as a twin city, so they can think of Rawalpindi also. The Karachi was the capital at one stage, but it is no more. Lahore is not the capital at present. So practically, that means that the questions are the options are homogeneous, but only one of them is correct, that is Islamabad. So exactly like that, these questions have one correct answer, but the others are correct in a way, but they are not absolutely correct, and they are false for this. So they will be 0 to 100%. So either it is a 0 or 100% correct. So this is the single correct answer. The marking sheet of this type of question presents as a circles in which you have to fill, the students have to fill it with a specific type of a pencil, and the optical reader will read it. Or in UK, they use those rectangle boxes over there, which are slightly bigger in size. I think they are more comfortable for the students, because while marking in those round boxes, if the pencil marking goes out of that round boxes, the optical reader finds it difficult to read, and sometimes they mark them as wrong. The optical reader report, which comes, also tells the difficulty index and the discrimination index, as well as the distractor effectiveness. How many students have picked A, how many have picked B, how many have picked C, and how many has picked D. It is very important that the distractors are all relevant for the BAQs. So it depends that it has been stated that at least 5% of the students should pick the other distractors as well to be called distractors as being effective. So if we compare between the best answer question and the correct answer question, the STEM is there always in the best answer question, but it may or may not be there in the correct type. The lead-in is always there in type A, but in type G may or may not be there. Lead-in statement is always as question in type A. It is recommended and it is being promoted that it should always be in the question form, while in type G it can be a question or a statement. The number of options can be 3 to 7. So this is a new recommendation. Previously we were going for 4 to 5 options, but there are institutes which are using 3, and there is a lot of research which tells that 3 options are equally good in the psychometric analysis then in comparison to 4 or 5 options. While in type G, there are 4 to 5 options. The character of the option is always homogeneous for the type A, and for type G, they are usually homogeneous. The key selection is the best in the list, and in G type, it's only correct in the list. The structures are all plausible and correct to various extent, while for the type G, they are all false, but plausible for the weak students. The cover test is not always reliable in type A, so this is a bombshell, because many people think that in type A, you can have the cover test. You can have the cover test if you have the university has always decided to have the best option there as one of the options. For the preclinical format, the STEM should encourage application of knowledge and interpretation of findings placed in the clinical or pathological context. Usually it's the pathology which takes the lead in these type of questions. The STEM should not be more than 120 words. Longer STEM should be used very, very rarely, because they take time in reading, and usually the students in their anxiety might not be able to complete the paper if the number of questions have the longer stems. It should be written in the present tense preferably, but sometimes if you are developing a story, it can go from the past tense to the present tense. Avoid the abbreviations wherever possible, except those which are commonly used and understood, or there are some which are very, very long and they are going to take a lot of space over there. So you can, but the students should be informed, and they should be re-emphasized to them over the time that these are the abbreviations may appear in the exam, and these are the abbreviations which can be used. For the specific disciplines, radiographs, picture, photomicrographs can be used for anatomy, pathology, microbiology, pharmacology. Lab reports can be used for data interpretation for biochemistry, pathology, and microbiology. Research findings or laboratory reports can be used for physio and bio concepts. The gross and microscopic features can be given of the specimens and slides for anatomical and pathological findings. So, number of ways in which the stems can be developed. It shouldn't be, or it doesn't need to be clinical all the time. For the clinical, usually it follows the pattern of the history taking. The stem again should be 30 to 120 words. Longest stem should again be used, not too many. Use the present tense, and scenario poses the clinical problem. Starts with the patient data, age, gender, occupation, ethnicity, setting in which the patient is coming. But don't say the patient comes to you. should be a general statement. The patient comes to see a doctor in this hospital or in this clinic or like that. So don't refer the patients towards you, because if the students will find it difficult to go to the question which is at the consultant level over there. So it's recommended that we shouldn't refer the question towards the student that this patient is coming to you. The presenting complaints, the system and the duration, the relevant past family or social history if required. All the information which is given should follow the pattern of the history taking, but all the information is, if it is not required, should not be there as a part of the scenario, because it will take a lot of reading time for the students and it will confuse the students. Physical examination, general physical examination, and positive or abnormal findings with no interpretation given. You don't interpret the findings for the students. Just give the findings over there. Investigations and results can be added in a logical standardized order form. Provide normal range also. It's because different instruments give different levels as a normal. So the normal, for example, for the hospitals, they have a specific forms in which they have given the normal range of the reports. So that should be used for the questions also. A good match should be there between the cognitive level posed by the question and the intended learning outcomes. If the intended learning outcomes says the student should be able to analyze, then the question should be at the level of analysis, should not be below that. So follow the Bloom's taxonomy in that respect. Think of the cognitive skills assessed as leading in questions and balance different level of thinkings in the examination. So questions will vary from different levels. In some institute, they say that at least 50% of the question should be of the higher hot level, that is at the level of the evaluation or analysis. But there are some other institutes in America, I think George Washington University says that 80% of the question should be of that high level. So it depends upon the criteria set by the faculty. Now this is one question of pediatrics over here. The scenario is simple. The patient's presentation is given over there. The history is given over there, and the relevant family history is also provided over there. Which of the following is the definitive recommended treatment for this child? So the students have to pick the definitive treatment only. So the student should know what the condition is and what will be the most appropriate treatment for this case. Choose topics learning outcome as specified in the blueprint. All the destructors are similar in length, complexity, phrasing, and style to the correct answer. Normally we say that they should be of the same length, and if you look at this example, the B options look a bit long, but it is the name. So a name can be a long or short. So in that case, this doesn't classify as to be a long statement. The B statement is not long, because for example, if you take the name of the muscles, the muscle can be as short as sartorius, and as B can be extensor digitorum longus or extensor hallucis longus and all that. So you can have 3-word name or a 2-word name over there. So whatever the number, it doesn't matter. Use authentic clinical context. The focus should be on the common clinical conditions. For example, I've given the example of the diseases which are spread by the rodents. Rodent is a big problem in Malaysia, and the question on rodent is very pertinent over here. And so there's a clinical scenario in which leads to the diseases which are produced by the rodents, and the best answer will be according to the scenario which is given over there. Item should assess the latest method of investigation and protocol. The old methods of counting the RBCs and the WBCs in that newborn counter is no longer valid, and the question should be not using all those old methods of investigation. So this question is going directly on the DNA microarray. So it's a genetics question. If the stem is long, the options should be short. Beware of the reading time again and again. This question has a very long stem, but if you go through it, the middle part where the investigations are given, the students just can find which is increased and which is decreased, which is the most likely diagnosis for this patient the three most relevant diagnoses were A, B, and C. So there's no need to go for the D or the E options in this one. If the stem is short, the option could be long. Avoid the definitions in options. It's very important that definitions are not asked in the options. This is a professionalism question. So all the options are almost of the same length, but they are quite long. The BEQ features taxonomy of item writing guidelines. Every item should reflect a specific content and a single specific mental behavior as called for in test specification. Avoid the trivial content, that is the Hawk type of examiner's questions. No need for that one. The question, if you see, is the patient is brought to you with a myocardial infarction. Because you are going to ask for the investigation, no need to give the history over there that the patient has a pain in the chest, which is radiating, blah, 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 all that. No need for that, because that will waste the student's reading time. If you want to go beyond the diagnosis, the patient is established to have a myocardial infarction, then go for the cardiac enzymes directly. So what I'm trying to say over here is that the stems need not to be very, very long to make it a good question. Or it should not be the whole history which is given over there to make it a good questions. The shorter but relevant information is important. Items should focus on higher order thinking skills, provide only as much information as it is necessary. There is a Buckwater cognitive assessment levels, which is given at the side of this slide. Please go through them, because these are very pertinent and very important to see at which level the question falls at. This is the question from biochemistry. Question is on porphyria. The last sentence which I made read practically is sort of giving an extra bonus to the students so that they can pick the correct answer. Otherwise, if you see that the information given as the history is complete enough to guide the students towards the correct answer question. So extra information should be avoided, especially the information which is being added only to help the students to come to the correct answer. The clinical vignettes, diagrams, laboratory reports, radiographs, pictures can be used. Seek consent of the people if you're using the documents from the hospital. So it's very important that if you're using the X-rays or any other reports, you should seek the consent first. This is again an anatomy question. If you read at the scenario, the picture adds the value over there. That looking at the picture, the scenario the stem will be understood better. So the question is simple: which of the following muscle is most likely to be affected? Going back to the basic anatomy. Practice evidence-based medicine, avoid the opinion-based items. For example, in this question, there is an outbreak of meningitis in a military camp. Which bacteria is most likely to be involved? There is a lot of literature which is coming from America that it is the Neisseria. But if we keep these options and change the scenario, it's a neonate who develops acute pyogenic meningitis. And CSF culture showed a growth of a bacterial pathogen. Most likely bacteria now is E. coli. So you can use those options and keep on changing the scenario and keep on developing new questions. So this is the recycling of the question, which actually it is the cloning of the question, which you can do by using some of the information and then modifying the questions accordingly. Use novel original material to test deep learning. Don't go for the questions which are available in the books or the item writing. These questions are produced by the teachers who might not have gone through the workshops to how to conduct the question, how to write the question workshops, or how to vet the question workshop. And it's very important that this type of information should be there. To write this type of activity, the writer should have gone through to write good questions. So use your own material and your own say lecture material over there to develop those questions for your own students. Avoid repetition to get wide coverage of the curriculum. Don't ask the question on the same thing over and over again. Avoid testing only recall of the familiar word and phrases. For example, this is one question again from the pediatrics, and it is the model answer is kwashiorkor in this one. Kwashiorkor is one thing which is never seen in Malaysia. So this question can be very good and very valid if the question is in subcontinent area, but it will not be a good question if it is put over here in Malaysia, because nobody is familiar. The kids are never never nourished over here. They're mostly overnourished in Malaysia. Avoid over specific or over general contents. This is one question of anatomy which is going very deep into the limbic system. This much of information is not required at undergraduate level, and you shouldn't be developing questions which look good, which look very fancy ones, but most of the students will not be able to attempt them. Each BAQ should have a clear and focused question. A question is preferable to an open-ended phrase or an incomplete sentence. It's preferable to an open-ended phrase or an incomplete sentence. So the case and the Swanson have always made this point that it should always be in the question form. Focuses on the single dimension, and all options are homogeneous. For example, is a short history of a patient who is diagnosed with this carcinoma, most likely tumor, most likely lymph nodes which are involved. So it's going to the very basic anatomy, the drainage of the lips, of the lower part of the face, to which lymph nodes it is drained. That's all. Preferably positively phrased. Negative phrased question lead-in should only be used if it serves an important educational purpose. Avoid double negatives, not uncommon, not unlikely, not unexpected. So these type of questions are always confusing. Not uncommon means it's very common, or it means that it is not very common. For example, in this question, there is a patient who has come for the antenatal, and during triple screen test was found to have spina bifida. The baby was found to have spina bifida, which is following is the least serious type of spina bifida. This information is important because you are going to impart this information to the mother that this is not a very severe condition you are having. So, if you want to give that sort of information and you are teaching the students how to do that, this type of question can be used. But usually the negatively phrased options are not used. All the options should be homogeneous. All tests, steps, diagnosis, mechanism of disease, treatments, relations, etc., etc. All alike related to the scenario and factual. This is another example over there. All options should be homogeneous and plausible, parallel in style and form. It's the rule of the question. All the options are worded clearly and concisely. Again, there comes the issues of the language. Clear wording reduces student confusion, and concise wording reduces the reading burden placed on the students. Which of the following best describe hypothesis in research? It has been modified into a very small. So usually don't pick up the text from the book and put it on as an option. It's a bad practice. Give all the options should be in the same wording and should be of almost the equal length. All the structures should be plausible with varied degree of accuracy. Place the option in logical, alphabetical, or numerical order. It's very important. Very, very short stem with following hormones is most likely to be primarily responsible for the increased growth rate. So the question is very straightforward and it's a physiology question. All options should be of almost equal length. You'll see that in this question, the words are almost equal, and the starts with a biopsy report, no history. The biopsy report of the 73-year-old woman confirms the advanced ductal carcinoma of the breast. So which is the characteristic histological features over there. What I am emphasizing is that for the preclinical, you shouldn't be asking too much of the clinical in the questions, the history. Assess the high level of cognition rather than the recall of the knowledge. this is again a physiology question on menopause and what is the cause of menopause and why the patient present with all those symptoms is given over there. If you look at the right side, I've given that over there an information on the type of distractors. There can be functional, non-functional, and dysfunctional. The functional are the ones which are serving their purpose. That means that the students who are weak in the topic, they're selecting them. Non-functional are those in which there is no difference between the good and the bad students and the weak students, sorry. The weak students, both of them are picking them equally. While the dysfunctional are those in which the good students are picking those options, while the weak students are not picking that option. That is a worrisome part. And if you look at the first graph over there, the red marks are the number of questions which were negatively discriminating. That means the good students were not able to do that question well. That reflects very bad on the wording of the question. That reflects very bad on the level of the examination which has been conducted. So practically, these red areas in the first graph should not be there. Usually there are flaws in the question, or there is the key which has been entered for that question is wrong. So immediate checking of the keys is demanded, and it has happened that by looking at the key and then modify, you will see that the result, it changes. Best answer question flaws. There are a number of studies which shows how the flawed questions are used for the assessment of the doctors in practice for continuing medical education. So this was one article which was written as the use of flawed multiple items by the New England Journal of Medicine for continuing medical education. New England Journal of Medicine is a very prestigious journal. The purpose of the study was to evaluate the quality of the MCQs used in that one. This journal, the issue is it has a weekly issue, so they normally put 2 OBAs in their issues, and the people, they respond to it and they get some CME points, and these CME points actually help the students in getting their promotion and things like that one. So each of the 40 items, they were reviewed independently, and similar rating was obtained in 98% of the items, and the remaining 2%, there was some disagreement which was overcome by consensus. The result was that each OBA has at least 3 item flaws, the mean of 5 and the range of 3 to 7, and collectively there were 203 flaws in 40 items. So it's a hugely flawed questions which they were asking in that, and they've given the data over here from that article. Then there is a go towards America, and there is a journal club prevalence of flawed medical multiple choice question in continuing medical education activities of major radiology journals. There are 3 journals in which they have looked for those questions. There were a total of 181 MCQs they picked up. Each question was evaluated by 3 reviewers for compliance of 7 MCQ writing guidelines. The result was that 78 of the 181, or 43% of the questions contained 1 to 4 flaws, making the test 15% difficult and increasing the failure rate by 25%. So there are a number of flawed questions were there. Conclusion was that large fraction of radiology CME question violate the standard question writing principles. In 2007 and 2010, there were 2 studies which came from the German literature, reveals that flaws in 68% and 65% of the items respectively. So the problem is not isolated in some underdeveloped country or something like that. The problem is more general, and the reason for being is that the questions which are prepared by the people have not been trained into the question writing laws and principles. The flaws, the technical item writing flaws can be of 2 types. There's one thing which is called as the construct irrelevant variance, CIV. CIV refers to the addition or subtraction of test score due to a measurement of some constructor trait which is not specifically targeted by the test. The test is on something else, is on more on a scientific thing, but there is some component in the question which is making the question either very difficult or very easy for the students. This is called as the construct irrelevant variance. The flaw items introduce unnecessary difficulty to the question. It subsequently affects the student performance, that is reported in 2013. While in 2010, the effect of items flaws can make the question either easier or more difficult to answer. And in another study, it was stated that the flawed items were easier and poorly discriminating than the standard items, and they tend to benefit low achieving students and penalize the high achieving students. So that was practically the drawback of having these type of questions. We'll talk a little bit about this construct irrelevant variance in a few slides later on. The second technical item flaw is the test wiseness prompts, which is called as, there is nothing with the question, there is some trait in the examinees. They can pick up some flaws in the questions, and then they can score the marks even without necessarily knowing the content of it. Test wiseness could be taught also to the students, how to pick those minor things in the questions which have make them questions as technically flawed, and you can increase the score of the students. So at some institutes, the training is being done as well. Well-constructed high-quality MCQs should allow for the evaluation of a wide range of scientific content and the avoidance of the technical item flaws. So again, when we say well-constructed questions, so that means that the staff members should undergo repeatedly undergo into the workshops with which they are taught about or the knowledge is updated about the flaws in the questions. One of the CIV is the window dressing flaw. What happens is there is an excessive irrelevant information given in the STEM. Use no more words than are necessary to express meaning and give enough relevant data, avoiding unnecessary detail. In this example, if you see that there is a lot of information given about the presenting complaints of the patient, but at the end you say she's suspected as a case of chronic lymphocytic leukemia. When the diagnosis has been given, the whole of the presenting complaints become redundant. And the question moved next is, which of the following is the investigation of choice for subtyping of this condition? So the students who are good students will keep on reading these statements over there and try to find the inner meaning, why this much information is provided over there. Keep the vocabulary simple, clear, and appropriate for the student tested. Use familiar words and use words with precise meaning than vague terminology. In this way, in the words inebriated, vulgarating, loss of steadiness, knockover, ephemeral, loss of, that means it is a transient loss of memory, of hearing coming and going. This is not an English paper examination, so there should not be so much of an English vocabulary which should be used over there. It will confuse the students, and the students will not be able to answer this question, which is a simple question technically. Question, the double barrier stems, double barrel items are the question that touches upon more than one issue in the STEM, but yet allows only one for answer. This is one example. A 30-year-old man, a known case of type 1 diabetes mellitus, presented with an infected wound in his left leg, is found to have diabetic ketoacidosis. Which of the following is the most important step for the treatment of diabetic ketoacidosis in this patient? Now, the question demands that the treatment of the diabetic ketoacidosis should be told, not how to treat the infected wound of in this patient. But this information over there might confuse the student, and in their answers they might pick up those options which are related to the leg foot infected wound. Again, in this another question, 84-year-old woman presents with a fall landing on her arms. Now see that in the right, there are some information which is given about the blood vessels. Then, furthermore, she is unable to extend the hand at the wrist joint, yet has maintained sensation in the palm of the hand, and this is regarding the nerve. And at the end of the statement, again, the short mid-brachial artery occlusion was found. So which nerve is most likely to have been damaged with the associated fault? The question is going back to the nerve, but there's so much information given about the blood vessels over there. This is, sorry, is a bit distractor. Sorry, for the students. Negative items, the word negative like least, uncommon, not, except, to cause difficulty for looking for the worst than the best option. It is always difficult to find what to look for the worst than the best option in the questions. And it does not mimic the typical reasoning in the workplace also. In the workplace, you look for the positive findings, you don't look for the negative findings per se. A young girl presents with a pain in the shoulder. There's a history given over there, which is the least likely diagnosis in this patient, the gout, because gout does not occur in this age group. Numerical data flaws, don't give absolute values, always give range, avoid overlapping range, which is mutually exclusive. Now, if you give such a specific 5%, 15%, 24%, 45%, what if the student has read about it instead of 5%, 6% in some of the articles or in some of the books? Will it be a wrong answer or not? So exact values given is always confusing for the students. And then there is an overlaying value flaw also, less than 20%, 20 to 30%, less than 50%. So if you see the level, the C options, less than 50% practically involves both the A and B as well. So which one is the correct, A, B, or C? More than 75%, E is 90%. So don't give that overlapping values as well in the questions. Long or the tricky options. Don't use tricky or unnecessarily long, complicated options. Cooked options will confuse the students. Tricky is always when you have introduced something out of blue from somewhere. So again, this is the pediatric question. I'm sorry, I've made the pediatric question of Prof. Malik wrong over here, flawed over here. So this is the question on which you are asking the WHO plan for the rehydration of a patient. There are plan A, B, there are plan B, and there are plan C's, but there is no plan D. But because we needed 4 options, so plan D was introduced out of nowhere. So good students will be thinking probably they have missed something, probably there is a new plan which is coming, so it will confuse the good students and they will be losing marks because of that. The parallel option flaws, all the options are not homogeneous. There are heterogeneous options, and heterogeneous options are not allowed because you don't know which one is the best when the options are heterogeneous. So heterogeneous options are never a part of a BAQ. So this should be completely avoided. Equivalence variances, options overlapping in meaning. Keep the choices independent from each other. Sorry, what happened? So now you see that the option A and option C is overlapping in this one, the arterial blood gas and the blood pH. You test the blood gas level and the blood pH will be the component of it. So this type of option should not be given to the students because students will not know which one they have to pick up. All and none of the above is also not recommended. When you give none of the above, then you don't know whether the student know if the option none of the above is correct. Then if the student picks it up even, then you wouldn't be sure that student actually know what is the correct option. And if it is all of the above, then it is not the best answer question because there are a number of options which will be best in that question. So these type of options are not part of the BAQs. Absolute or vague terminology, terms, many high-level ideas are not absolute like never or always, and they should be eliminated by the test-wise students. So now we are doing the test-wise students over here. Always, only, never, this type of informations are, this type of words are not used in the questions. And don't use the woolly terms like usually, maybe, often, sometimes in options. The student have to guess the question writer's personal definition for such terms. May have a low PA, sometimes, usually, often. You don't know what does that actually mean. How does it it can be evaluated. The word repeats or the clang associations, word or phrases are repeated in the stem and options, and more repeating, the more likely it is to be the right answer. So in this question, there was an auricle over there, and there was a temporomandibular joint. So auriculotemporal, the nerve is coming over there. So usually the test-wise students will pick up this answer, and it is the correct answer also. So the clangs can be the cluing of the questions, the cross-reference of the question, or the hinging of the question. The information is given. Please read through to understand this thing more clearly. The test-wise forms also include the convergence strategy, in which you give the number of, in one option there are number of parameters which are given. For example, in this one, sodium chloride, IV infusion, insulin infusion, subcutaneous heparin. In this question, the normal values are not given. You don't have to read the stem to come to the conclusion of the right answer. See, there is NaCl in 3 of the options, but in 2 of the options it is 0.9% and 0.9%. So the student who is test-wise smart will not take this option, will not consider this option. And in the 4th option, it is not sodium chloride, it is sodium bicarbonate. So this option will be out. So A and D student will not be think of. The student will now compare the B and the C. In the C option, you will see that the potassium is over there, while all the others have subcutaneous heparin over there. So the potassium makes this option C as redundant. So the student has picked up this option as the correct answer just by playing with the options which are given over there, the different clangs, the different factors given over there, and they can come up with the correct answer. Again, if you see at the question which is given over onto the right side, active, artificial, acquired, artificial, acquired, you will see that the option B has all the 3, active, artificial, and acquired. So the B is the correct answer over there. So these type of, the test-wise students are good in calculating these type of questions. The verbic time text flaw is the key answer is worded differently from the distractors, because this answer has been picked up directly from the book or the article. And the distractors are plain the short statements written in a more simpler way. So this is one example which is coming from, again, from a PLOS Medicine. This is an online journal which again tests your knowledge 10 questions on primary prevention of cardiovascular disease. They do this on a monthly basis, and this question is coming from there. And again, you will see that option A will be correct one because it has all the words which is coming up from the article over there. Then is the logical cues. The subset of options are along a similar theme or mention a particular word, and hence are mutually exhaustive. The test-wise student will look for the correct answer in this cluster. So in the options, you have given hyperkalemia, hypokalemia, and normokalemia. All 3 cannot coexist. So either it is hyper, or it is hypo, or it's a normo. So the students will not think of the 4th option over there, and they will maybe guess or maybe calculate among those 3 the correct answer. The grammatical clues, 1 or more distractors don't follow the stem grammatically. And this happens especially if the question type is not used over here. The most important investigation to aid diagnosis is anti-double stranded DNA antibody titer, consider lung biopsy, measure the blood pressure, perform the electrocardiograph, serum calcium, and these are 2 investigations, so they are not grammatically running together. except for the A option. So usually the test-wise student will pick up the option over there. The option length clue is over there. Correct answer contains additional information to ensure that it's clearly the best choice, called as the too long to be wrong rule, which is, for example, in this one, again, a pediatric question, a 2-year-old girl is brought to emergency. And following are the most appropriate next step in her care. Request a urine culture and sensitivity to rule out urinary tract infection. In others, you are not telling them to why you are doing chest X-ray and why you are sending blood for culture or why you are taking blood for the inflammatory markers. But in B, you are giving them a lot of information over there, so the student will automatically pick up those questions. That option is the correct answer. In summary, the items can be made easiest than it is intended, and the item can be made more difficult than intended. I've given the list of the flaws which are pertinent to this. I think this is the last one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. We will start answering the questions first, which were given in the chat box, and then we will entertain questions from all of you. The first question, appropriate range of difficulty and discrimination index. What is the appropriate range of difficulty index and discrimination index?
Okay. Okay, there is a range which is for the difficulty index and the discrimination index. Usually the questions which have the difficulty index of 0 to 29 are called as the difficult questions. The 30 to 69 is considered as the moderate questions, and 70 to above up to 100 is considered as the easy questions. But different universities can modify this range 5 points plus minus here and there, because in some institutes, they will think that 80% to 100% will be the easy questions. So this is the difficulty index. The discrimination index, if the discrimination goes in negative, less than 1, less than 0, that will be the negatively discriminated question. Between 1 to 2 is considered as the good discrimination. 2 to, because this discrimination goes from 0 to 1. So from 0.20 to 0.2 is considered as a average question. 0.2 to 0.6 is considered as the average question, and more than 6 is considered as the difficult question. Practically, it's a very good discriminatory question, but usually that means it is also a very difficult question.
Okay, the next question related to this is whether difficulty index can be calculated for this type of MCQs.
Difficulty index, yes, you can. Actually, it is being calculated if it is being done by the OMR machine. So they will come up with the difficulty index, the correct answer, and the destructor evaluation they will also do. So if you are having that OMR, you're not doing it manually, then yes, the difficulty index will be given in that report.
Number of words, maximum number of words per STEM.
30 to 120. It was mentioned both for the clinical and clinical. Too much wordy will be exhaustive for the students to read also, and especially if the material which is given is irrelevant. And these 130 level of number of words questions should be also not very many, because if the words are less and the questions have less options, probably you can ask more questions in that specific time than if you are making one question which is very lengthy.
Next question is, can you explain more about the range of correctness when we were talking about single best answer question and the single correct answer questions, the range correctness.
Okay, we go back to that slide again. Any help? What should it be? This is the slide you're referring to?
Yes, this is
this slide. Okay. For the best answer question, all the answers are plausible and correct to a variable extent, and that variable extent was given in this slide. Okay. So the question can be correct anywhere between 0 to 100%. 0% options usually are not acceptable, but sometimes it happens when you're having 5 options, option BAQs, that there can be a one option which is 0%. That is why the modern trend is that instead of putting that absolutely wrong option over there, it's better to have one less option over there. So instead of 5, you can have 4, or if you're having 4, you can have 3 over there. But the level of correctness, it should be as near to 100% as possible. While for the correct answer question, it is either absolutely correct or they are absolutely incorrect. It's like, are they true or they are not true? They are false options. But they are homogeneous in a way, and they are plausible for the weak students. They might think of them. That is the important part of the single correct answer question.
Okay, if we have finished almost all questions in the chat box. If somebody has any additional question, please ask.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Rukhsana. It was very well informed. Sorry.
Questions?
I'm Dr. Akshay Iftikhar from Peshawar. And I want to ask one question: how to construct C2 level and C1 level of MCQs?
Any question?
The question is that how to construct C1 and C2 level MCQs. C1 is just recall, and C2 is...
Sorry, can you repeat?
How to construct C2 level MCQs.
How to construct 2 level of C2 level?
C2 level. C2 level will be the question of understanding, yes?
Yes.
Yes. So usually the recall and the understanding level of the questions are not the best answer questions, because you are just asking them the simple facts.
The one best question. These are the one best questions.
Yeah, you can construct a single correct answer question.
Single correct answer, yes.
Yes.
We are using a single correct answer actually in our curriculum.
Okay.
Dr. Rabia?
Dr. Akshan.
Yeah.
Dr. Rabia want to ask a question.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thank you so much for a comprehensive presentation, ma'am. Yes, this is Dr. Rabia Anis. Can you hear me?
Yes,
can
please.
You hear me?
Yes, please. Continue.
Okay. I want to ask that it was written, as it was mentioned in your presentation, that we provide feedback for best answer questions. So in what I have observed, that we don't really give that feedback to the students, right, on best answer questions. So is it, do you people practice, because there are so many people from different backgrounds, so do you people practice giving feedback on a best answer question, as it is mentioned that it is very important to give them feedback regarding it? But I really want to know if it should be given at what step, because when we are doing formative assessment, so at that step we should give, or because in summative evaluation we don't actually give feedback. So please kindly if you can clear this to me. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, we do give feedback on all type of questions which we are using. It is after the conduction of the formative assessment, because the OMR report comes up very, very quickly. So you sit with the class. So there is one session which is conducted with the class. The questions are shown to them, and then the question is discussed with them. Why this option was correct and why this option was not correct. Why this option was the best option and why this option was not the best option. We give the feedback immediately after, within that week practically of the conduction of the examination. For the summative assessment, you are right, because after the summative assessment, the students disappear. And because they are either going to be promoted to the next stage, or they are no more interested in getting the feedback of those questions. But in some institutes, in some places, we do give them the feedback after they come back. Because in the second year, for example, after they pass the first year, they're coming for the second year. That will be the continuation of the same curriculum, preclinical. So they are given feedback after they come back. But usually the students are not interested in getting that feedback, to tell you the truth. Yeah. Have I answered?
Prof. Roxana, can I ask you a question?
Yes, Prof.
Do we have to follow the principle of cover test for every question, or sometimes we don't need to do the cover test?
The cover test, Prof, if the rule is that the best answer should always be there in the options,
yeah,
then you can have the cover test.
Yeah, so yes, but it is good if we are able to do the cover test. Is that right?
Yes. You can do the cover test for that.
Yes,
but sometimes you're not giving the best option to the students. You're giving the second best option, and the second best option for that question will be the best option now.
Yeah.
So that will not pass the cover test. So cover test loses its significance over there.
That's why I'm a little bit confused whether I should do cover test for. Cover
test is more good for the single correct answer questions, Prof. If you're using the single correct answer, then it should definitely pass the cover test.
So if your question type is BAQ, you don't need to fulfill cover test for every. If our question type is SBAQ, then it is best that we fulfill the cover test. Is that right?
No, Prof. SBAQ means single best answer question.
I know. So
in single best answer question, cover test won't be positive all the time. It will not be effective all the time.
Oh,
but in single correct answer question, it will always be the true, because there is only one correct answer.
One best, yes. So following that, what about the alphabetical order? Do you want me to fulfill the alphabetical order for the options also?
Yeah. Okay. For the options, it can be a logical order, it can be an alphabetical order, or it is a numerical order. I've given this information in some of the slides over there.
Yes. Oh, by the way, are you giving us the slides? Because I didn't get it prior to this session, or did I miss it?
It was sent, Prof. We will pass you again.
Oh, because I didn't get it, so I'm wondering whether you are not giving or not. Thanks so much. I really try and augment my prior knowledge, Prof. Roxana.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question in chat box is there a sequence to start writing a question? Like think of STEM first or the options first. Sometimes question is in mind and the suitable options are only 3 to 4. Requirement is to write 5 options. So is there any specific sequence to start writing a question?
You construct the scenario first and you look for the options later on. Because if you look for the option, you construct the option first, then you will try to fix or put all of them in the scenarios that will be the distorted sort of a history over there. So the scenario comes first, the STEM comes first, and then the options are
Yes.
the relevant options are selected from there. Again, I think this is one forum in which there are so many medical educationists. There is no hard and fast rule that there should be 4 options or 5 options. And there is a literature available which says that you can have a 3 options and it has equal effect, it is equally good. So why not we reduce the number of options in some of the questions if we are not getting the good options instead of putting the false options over there?
Yes, that's right.
You can make the decision at the faculty level. There is no hard and fast rule that to have 4 options or 5 options or 3 options.
Question, any ratio for easy and difficult questions while paper setting? Sorry. Okay. Question is, any ratio for easy and difficult questions while setting paper?
I've given you 2 examples over there. At least 50% of the question should be of that is the question of the lots and the hots. So at least 50% of the question should be of the higher order thinking. That means the level 3, 4, and 5 of the Bloom's taxonomy. But if you make the questions of 1 or 2 level, that will be the pure recall of the facts. They will not be a good BAQs. So if you're having BAQs, then your level should be level 3 or level 5, 4, and 5 mainly.
Okay. The next question, is there any difference between table of specification TOS and blueprint?
Not really, not really. They means the same, that it's practically the terminologies which are used differently. There are different ways of developing the blueprint in which you identify the number of questions, then you identify the learning outcomes, and which will be assessed, then you have to identify the topics from which they will be coming, and then you'll see the level of question which you are going to produce for that one, C2, C3, C4, or C5. So the blueprint will keep on developing, the spreadsheet will keep on developing over that. That is a huge work which is done by the medical education in many institutes. Yeah.
Prof. Roxana, it will depend also on the exam, isn't it? Like a professional exam, or is it the end of posting exam for the clinical, right?
Depend what for
on the type of examination. Is it the professional final examination, or is it the end of posting? End of posting is like me, pediatric. It will be pediatric surgery separately, whereas the for the final professional exam, it is medical based, surgical based. So that will differ.
No, Prof. Yeah, it will differ, but the table of specification and the blueprint
are the same.
Should be done for all examinations.
Yeah. Yes.
Because some of the content you will be covering in the formative assessment, and some will go for the summative assessment.
But for the final,
you will know at the end. You will know that you have covered most of the curriculum, because
yes.
For the outcome-based education, all the outcomes should be assessed.
Yes. But for our professional, Prof. Roxana, we do not use the continuous. We do standalone, isn't it? The final professional exam is standalone only, the theory and clinical. We do not use the continuous.
No, Prof. It's not the matter of having the continuous component over there. When you make a spreadsheet, because the example which I've given over there is end of module examination and the professional examination. So overall, when you look at it, you will see that all the topics should be assessed at some time during the course.
Okay.
All should be coming in the final professional examination, not like that.
Okay. So as long as you have everything put in there, then you are
making your stakeholders happy.
Yes.
They will know that everything has been assessed.
Yes. Thank you.
Another question in the chat box. For last so many years, we have learned to write options first after identifying theme and sub-theme. Then we construct it STEM. Now you have just told a new concept to start from STEM. Please elaborate the sequence.
Which questions we are talking about, the MCQs or the true false type question?
You have to answer like
whose question is this?
Assalamu alaikum, Dr.
Sumaira.
Rukhsana. This is Sumaira here.
Yes, Sumaira.
Thank you so much for continuing these webinars. They are very informative. My query is this: for the last so many years, we have been talking about the options construction first and then going to constructing the STEM while constructing an item question. And now you just have said our phrase that we should construct the STEM first and then go for the options. I just want to know more about it. And that would be helpful for me. Thank you.
The literature says, Dr. Humaira, that you should be constructing the STEM first, because then the STEM will be more genuine. Because if you are putting the options first, then you will modify the STEM a lot, and that will no more be authentic. So the STEM has to be authentic. It should be realistic. It shouldn't be following your list of the options actually. So for BAQs, it is always recommended that you should write the STEM first and then look for the options. So for example, in the options you are giving 4 diagnoses, then you are going to construct the STEM according to those diagnoses. The normal logic of working is that you get the STEM first, you get the patient first, and then you find the differential diagnosis, for example. Then you go for the investigations. So if you go for the investigations first and then try to fit it into the STEM, it will be very difficult.
Okay, thank you.
Having said that, sometimes we have to fine tune the STEM and the options. So I think that fine tuning is okay, but otherwise, like Dr. Rukhsana said, that we would be creating an artificial kind of situation to accommodate the options in the STEM. Right? Any other questions?
Yes.
Please.
Dr. Rashid Mahmood.
Yes,
thanks,
please.
Professor Alamsher Malik and Dr. Rukhsana. It seems that there was lot of efforts behind this presentation. I want to comment or rather ask about the discrimination and the difficulty index. Now, these are a little terms which cannot be constant. They depend upon the level of the students and the level of the examination. A same question in one of the examination, it may be the computer may calculate it to be difficult, and the same question may be calculated by the OMR as easy. So similarly, discrimination index, one question has got a different discrimination index in one exam, and the same question has got different discrimination index in another exam. So can this be relied that this just simple mathematical calculation? Or I think the faculty, the HODs, the subject experts, they should determine that whether the question is easy or difficult or moderate instead of OMR machine. Need your comments, please.
Yeah, Prof. Thank you very much for the question. Yes, the difficulty and discrimination index of the question might vary with the type of the students we are having. In one cohort, you have a very good student, so the difficulty and the discrimination index will be better over there. In the second cohort, you have especially in the private institutes, for example, you didn't get the good students, and you have the average type of students, so the difficulty index will be the discrimination index will be low. The idea is that usually it is recommended that those questions which have been marked as good questions with the good difficulty index and a good discrimination index should be put in the next examination. About 30% of the questions can be recycled from there. So if you add those questions in the next paper or for the next batch, then you will easily assess whether those questions were of the high standard or the students were of the different levels over there. So in one of my slides, I have put that information over there that yes, you have to use and recycle your question bank. And by using your question bank, you will be able to more collect the best type of questions and And then you can discard all those questions which practically are not giving the consistent difficulty and discrimination index.
Thank you.
Time for each BAQ.
Oh, anything between 45 minutes to 1 minute and 30 seconds. This has been documented in different, it depends on which type of, for example, in the preclinical year, 45 seconds is enough, but for the clinical years, when they have to read a lot, the 1 minute and 30 seconds is given. 130, no?
So, Prof. Roxana, it's not 2 minutes, right?
No, 2 minutes is a bit too much, Prof, no?
No.
Because we give 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Yeah, okay.
1 minute, 30 seconds, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, any other questions?
Okay, ma'am, I need to ask one question as well. Just like as we said that the time duration is around 45 seconds to 1 minute, 30 seconds. And when we just saw different types of BAQs you just discussed that contained, the whole of the reports and the investigations given. So it takes a bit longer to just see all the values, read that. So can we not include that information or ask that type of questions in other assessment strategies like OSCE or something like that, just to avoid just to make it more difficult in asking BAQs? Or is it fine to, because I faced such an exam which gave such type of questions, and they were around 150 questions, and after attempting 50 questions I was unable to process. Yes, I was exhausted. Yeah. So what do you say about it?
Okay. The BAQs cannot be asked in OSCEs or OSPEs, because OSCEs are the skill-based questions. So this is the knowledge-based question we are talking about. Number one. Number two is that when it probably you had a bad luck that there were too many questions which were of longer version in your examination. Normally, what they do is that they decide that how many of the longer version questions will be there, and that will be balanced with those questions, those BAQs which are not the longer version. And the best way will be for you to estimate how much time will be required and then decide the whole time of the question over there. That might be decided by the faculty. If the faculty insists, for example, that all the questions should be longer version and have a lot of material, then you can increase the time, like Prof. Soso was saying that they are giving 2 minutes over there.
Right.
By giving 2 minutes, practically you are reducing the number of questions which you can ask, because your examination cannot extend beyond a specific time. So it should be always the question should always be a mixture of long and the short ones, and not too many of the long ones. That I've emphasized multiple times. That the very long question in which you are giving them a lot of information which is not even utilized. Don't give those questions too many. But for some subjects, a long information is they are not supposed to read each and everything. They will just pick up the positive points over there. If it is, for example, a blood report or something like that, you don't have to read each and every component of it. So it depends. It depends how you are going to work with the students and how you are going to develop the students' aptitude towards preparing for the exams.
And do we need to, when we talked about the blueprint and the table of specification, so do we need to provide this to the students or not?
No. Because this is between you, between the academic office. Even it doesn't go out to all the teachers and all that also. It goes only to the head of the department. Okay. Because it is practically, it amounts to leaking out the paper.
Okay, I see the hand raised by Professor Ziaul Islam.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. My question is that while writing the clinical vignette, there is a term known as theme and sub-theme. So what could be right in theme and what could be right in sub-theme, and it also occurs in preclinical questions and in clinical side, and it is always a debatable that what should be the theme in for example in basic sciences and what could be theme and sub-theme in writing clinical variants.
This terminology theme is used for the extended matching questions, Prof.
Okay.
In extended matching question, you can have a list of options which can be go up to the Z of alphabet, but then you have 3 or 4 stems given over there.
Okay.
So for each stem, again the cover test is very valid in this one. The student just have to look for that diagnosis, that investigation that they think is the best answer in the option list.
Right.
So this is for the extended matching question, not for the BA.
Right.
Okay, Dr. Asad Ali. Asad Ali Razali.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the thing. I want to make 2 comments and ask a question regarding the construction of the item, or for when you have to construct the item and thinking about the option. The problem is sometimes the number of option or the allowed option that you can use it, how to create Placido option is important. For example, you cannot construct then the stem with a scenario. Then when you have to construct the option, you find that you have less number of option, Placido option. So that will be another problem. So I think during the construction, we have to look in both directions, to the stem and to the available option or the available Placido option. Because we cannot put in same or some exam item with different number of distractor. It will not be. This is one point. The second point regarding the time allowed for the item or the question. LPQ question paradigm. So it depends about the student. For undergraduate, there's a different time. For postgraduate, there's a different time. So we should look for the candidate himself. This exam is constructed for undergraduate or postgraduate. According to that, we should manage the time. Regarding the standard time in literature, the standard time is ranging from 1.5 to 2 minutes. And we have to, as an exam composer or constructor, we have to consider the length of the scenario in general in the exam and other. So please, would your professor comment about the reconstruction, taking in consideration the number of options and the length of the stem, if possible?
Thank you very much for your comments, Prof. Regarding the timings, yes, the time is different between the undergraduate and the postgraduate students, but we are talking mainly is about the undergraduate. And in undergraduate, for the basic science questions, you don't need too much of a time. So that is why I said usually for the preclinical years, we give about 45 seconds for each. But for the clinical years, because the students have to think about it, so the time is given is around 1 minute 30 seconds. We find that time.
Sorry, bro, for interruption at this point. The problem is some courses in medical college, they integrated. So there's the clinical scenarios. It's not only recalling of knowledge recalling.
The scenarios are always there in the BAQs, Prof. There's always a scenario. It depends upon how lengthy scenario you are making in that. In the basic sciences, you don't have to have a very lengthy scenario. And as in the examples which I've given in some of the clinical situations, for example, you give a long history of the patient and then you tell them that the diagnosis was made. So what is the significance of the history left when you want to move further from there? In the clinical years, your question move from the history of the presenting complaints to the diagnosis. If you're giving the diagnosis, it will go to the investigations for confirmation. From the investigation for confirmation, it will go to the treatment. So the question flows like it's a real case scenario, like it happens really in the wards and in the hospitals. So you're not supposed to give the whole detail of the history to the students, because that will waste their time and that will exhaust them. There is one slide in which I have mentioned the exhaustion of the students, the fatigue of the student also. The students do feel fatigued with very lengthy questions. So there should be a good balance between the lengthy question and the short questions. And the one way of overcoming that issue of not having enough options is to have less options, because your optical reader marker, the answering sheet can have up to as many number of options as you want to put over there. But if you, but you can ask only A, B, and C over there, and you can ask A, B, C, D, E, F over there. It's up to you. The options which are used is 3 to 7, which I have read in the literature. So 7 means A, B, C, D, E, F, G up to G going. So this is more like an extended matching question than the best answer question. So it depends upon what type of questions you are using, how many questions you are using, what type of students you have, and how much time you are giving for that examination. Usually these BAQs does not go for 3 hours. It is usually completed in about 1.5 hours. But if you are having a 3 hours, or there is literature in which they say they have a 5-hour examination, which is, I think, too exhaustive for the students. You can have a mixture of questions with the long and the short scenarios.
True. Can you ask a question, Professor Malik, please?
Yes, of course. Professor Malik.
Yes, please.
Right.
Yes, Prof. Yes.
Right. My question would be, in assessment for BAQs, which is a better system, the percentile scoring or absolute scoring?
This means, Prof, you are talking about normative assessment, and so if we, like we were discussing the discrimination index and the difficulty index, that is depending upon what you are calling the percentile. The result depends upon the type of the level of students. So that would not be appropriate for knowledge-based questions.
Right.
Yeah, not even for clinical, because in that you say, okay, you want to pass top 25%.
Right.
That is okay. That is okay for postgraduate MRCP or those kind of things. Or you say you in your country you have 25 posts to fill, and there are let's say 1,000 candidates, so you would pick up top 25. So, right. But in that case, you would be failing many deserving students. Mm-hmm. So I think that would not be appropriate for knowledge-based questions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Right, there is another question from Professor Rashid Mahmood. A fixed table of specification visible to students is encouraging selective study. Please comment. Actually, Prof, we don't recommend that. The table of specification is not supposed to be shown to the students. You are right. If it is shown to the students, it would encourage the selective study. All right. I think we are coming towards the end of the session. As usual, I have to show you the last 2 slides. The first one is for the next webinar, which is going to be on 24th of October. And this would be on reflection, feedback, and portfolio. So this is more of a concept type of discussion. And I hope all of you can attend that. And the last slide, as usual, and I think mentioned in the beginning as well, please donate $1 USD equivalent amount in your local currency to any deserving individual or any organization, welfare organization in your neighborhood, a community. That is, take it as a part of our webinar activity. And I hope that all of us are following this request. With that, I thank for your support, the constant support and the encouragement we get all along. And that's what keeps us going and keeping us interested in this activity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you very much, Prof. Roxana. Would you kindly send back the slides I missed along the way? That's why today some of the slides I'm not very familiar. Can you send me back, Prof?
Prof. Soso, you are a very special person.
Why is that?
Because you are special.
Are you? You are my friend, Prof.
So I'll send you the slides. Don't worry.
I don't know why I miss, really. But we've got the professional exam and vetting and this and that. So yeah. Maybe I was so occupied, Prof.
Yeah, maybe.
So sorry for that.
Yeah.
Yes,
don't worry. We will share that and we will share the video soon as well.
Okay. Yes. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you very much, everybody.
See you next month. See you next month. Thank you very much.
Inshallah.
Yeah.